הנדיב הידוע.
ואילולי הוא, מי יודע מה היה קורה?
הוא ראה עולם אחר לגמרי. הוא הסתכל קדימה. לא היה פה כלום. אבל היה חזון.
הוא נשבע ביופיו של המקום.
היה לו חזון, והוא הצליח.
הוא עשה את הכל בשקט, בצניעות.
לא בכדי, הוא נקרא אבי היישוב. אנחנו נכנסים פה בעצם לתוך ספר היסטוריה. מאחורי גני רמת הנדיב מסתתר סיפור מופלא. המקום הזה, מעבר לזה שהוא גן יפה, כמו שנראה עוד מעט, ופה עוד הרבה הפתעות שנכיר בהמשך הדרך, אי אפשר להבין אותו בלי לחזור אחורה לעולם אחר לחלוטין. אנחנו מתחילים את הסיפור שלנו בגרמניה, בבית משפחת רוטשילד, בפרנקפורט העתיקה שלפני 200 שנה. האב, מאיר עם של רוטשילד, היה ידוע כאיש עסקים ישר והגון. ומספרים שלילה אחד דפק על דלתו הנסיך המקומי, שחיפש מקום מסתור לארגזי הזהב שלו. זה היה מסוכן. הנסיך מודח מתפקידו, נאלץ לברוח מהמדינה, ורוטשילד, שהיה ידוע באמינותו, לקח את האוצר ושמר לו עליו. עברו שנים, והנסיך חזר. הוא הגיע לבית רוטשילד, וגילה להפתעתו שהכסף נשאר מטבע למטבע. היושר שהפגין רוטשילד הזקן בעסקה הזו נודע ברבים, ובית רוטשילד הפך לבית עסקים גדול. רוטשילד כינס את 5 בניו הבוגרים בערוב ימיו, ואמר להם, אני מציע לכם להתפזר בעולם, אבל תעשו עסקים ביחד. תסמכו אחד על השני, ולא יהיה גבול להצלחה שלכם. תחשבו על 5 חיצים. כל חץ אפשר בקלות לשבור אותו. את 5 החיצים יחד קשה מאוד לשבור. ובסמל של משפחת רוטשילד, שישנו פה בשער עם 5 החיצים, אלה 5 האחים. ו3 המילים, קונקורדיה, אחדות, אינדוסטריה, חריצות, ואינטגריטס, יושרה, מייצגות את הערכים של בית רוטשילד.
הרוטשילדים פרסו כנפיים. 5 הבנים הקימו סניפים בלונדון, בפריז, בווינה, בפרנקפורט ובנפולי. אלה היו מרכזים פיננסיים. האמונה ברוטשילדים עברה כמו גלים, גלי הדף לכל אירופה. והשם של רוטשילד בהדרגה הפך להיות לשם של אמינות, וידם הייתה בכל העסקים הגדולים של העולם.
בין הסכונים של הברון הצרפתי ג'יימס היה אדמונד, והוא גדל בשיא העושר הצרפתי של המאה ה-19. האחים הגדולים שלו כבר היו בעסקים, במסחר. הוא לא נחשב לאיש עסקים. הוא נחשב לאספן, לאמנות, היה לו יקב.
הוא היה מהאריסטוקרטיה של יהדות צרפת. הוא היה במקום הכי גבוה שיכול להיות.
איך הוא מגיע לעניין הזה של ארץ ישראל, ואיך הוא נשאר בו 50 שנה?
ארץ ענייה, לא כבישים, לא חשמל, לא תחבורה, מעט מאוד אנשים.
ואז המושבות הן עובריות לגמרי.
חקלאות מאוד מאוד פרימיטיבית.
מציאות של מלאריה, מציאות של במשך שנה 10% מהאנשים נטו.
זה מה שהיה פה בישראל. ובאירופה היו הרבה יהודים שהחלום שלהם זה להגיע לישראל, אבל רובם עניים, קשה היה להם להתפרנס, קשה לחיות.
בדיוק אז היו הפרעות ברוסיה, והברון רוטשילד חשב שהדרך הנכונה היא קודם כל לעזור ליהודים סובלים.
ואז הגיע משלחת מיהודי ארץ ישראל אל הברון רוטשילד בפריז, לבקש עזרה. והברון, הנדיב הידוע, מחליט לעשות מעשה.
הוא לא התכוון להיכנס לאותה הרפתקה שהוא נכנס אליה. זה היה הדרגתי.
הוא לא חזן שהוא הולך להיות האבא של ההתיישבות גדולה בארץ ישראל. הוא התחיל בקטן, הוא התחיל בתמיכה במספר מושבות.
ודי מהר מצא את עצמו מעורב עד האוזניים.
מראש פינה בצפון ועד גדרה בדרום, הברון רוטשילד קנה אדמות כדי להקים עליהן מושבות.
המקצועיות של החקלאים המתיישבים הראשונים הייתה מאוד לקויה. לכן הוא שלח להם אנשי מקצוע.
לקח שנה לבנות את זכרו. בתקופה הטורקית, בימים ההם, שאין מכוניות ואין בולדוזרים ואין טרקטורים והדבר הכי כבד שישנו בשטח זה גמל עם דבשת. בנו מושבה לתפארת. איזה בתים יפים. בית כנסת יחיד במינו, יקר, גנים. הייתה פה עשייה גדולה מאוד.
והוא לא רוצה פרסום. הוא מוכן לעשות הרבה, רק שלא יזכירו את שמו. ולכן קוראים לו הנדיב הידוע.
הוא נתן עם כל הלב לכל המושבות שלו.
ומספרים עליו שהוא היה באמת מטורף על כל הראש בענייני ארץ ישראל. היה
לו חדר מיוחד עם כל המפות של ארץ ישראל, והוא היה שוכב על הארץ כדי לראות יותר טוב את המפה שהוא היה מבוגר יותר. אז הדבקות שלו בזה הלכה וגדלה, האהבה שלו הלכה וגדלה יותר ויותר.
ב-1934 הברון רוטשילד נפטר בצרפת. בצוואתו הוא ביקש להיקבר בישראל, אבל הוא לא אמר איפה. ובעצם הבן שלו, ג'יימס, היה צריך לפענח את החידה. ג'יימס בחר את הגבעה הראשית הזו ליד זיכרון, כי הברון היה קשור למושבה זיכרון יעקב ואהב את הנופים החשופים שמסביב. מהמקום הזה אפשר לראות לא רק את הים, אלא גם את המפעלים השונים של הברון בסביבה הקרובה, היישובים שהוא הקים.
זה לא שהברון רוטשילד לא עניין אותי. פשוט ראי שזה מקום עניין אותי יותר. זה לא כמו איזה בלש כזה, ממש כמו קאופוי כזה. אז הקמתי אחריו.
את הגן הקימו משפחת רוטשילד, לזכרו של הנדיב הידוע, הברון רוטשילד. גן זיכרון, קבר, מקום עצוב, אבל למעשה גן פורח, שמח. הרעיון היה לא רק להביא למנוחת עולמים את הברון, אלא בו זמנית ללמד פרק בהיסטוריה, לראות איך עושים גן יפה בתנאים של ארץ ישראל, ולאפשר מקום למחקר וללימוד. זאת אומרת, כל המקום הזה הוא מלא פנים.
אף פעם לא ראיתי גן כזה ענק ויפה, ומטפלים בו כל כך יפה. הוא מיוחד, זה גם מיוחד.
הגן הוא בעצם אוסף של גנים קטנים ושונים, שכל אחד עם סיפור משלו. גן הוורדים הוא אירופה בהתגלמותה, גן ורדים קלאסי. גן הדקלים, אוספים דקלים מכל העולם, כדי שמי שמבקר כאן יוכל לראות דברים מאוסטרליה ומאפריקה. יש גן לריחות שמיועד בעיקר לאנשים שלא רואים טוב, שיהנו גם הם. יש גן מפלמן, גן מדורג בסגנון ים תיכוני, זורם.
Which brings me to Gaza. I have a real affinity with the people in Gaza, folks. I actually went into Gaza Strip in 2012 and I snuck in through tunnels to get in there. It was quite an amazing experience. But a lot of people don't understand what's going on with Gaza. It's just this thing on the news, this mess, this religious war that people perceive is going on, and they just wish it would go away. But what's important about Gaza is that what we see in Palestine today and how it affects everybody is that what we see is a system of warehousing and surplusing human beings. This is your warehouse and this is your surplus. And what they're doing with these people is absolutely disgraceful, and this is ethnic cleansing, and it's been going on for 67 years. Now, this is what's happened with Palestine when Israel was formed. This is what it used to look like, but then it became this when they set up the boundaries. How they ever thought that would work, I don't know, but obviously they didn't think it would work. That's why they set it up that way. But this war's been going on ever since 1948 when this happened, or 1947, and all through it Israel's been crying victim, while Palestine has been gradually decreasing in size. So who is the victim here? What's really going on? In West Bank, this is West Bank, actually that's West Bank in about 2005, it's a lot smaller than that now. In West Bank there are actually 760 checkpoints in West Bank. And you imagine that, I don't know what the size of Copenhagen is, but if anybody here's been to Australia, West Bank is about the size of Sydney western suburbs in Australia. 760 checkpoints, takes up to 6 hours to get through a checkpoint. That's what they've got in West Bank. And what we see in Gaza is a group of people who decided they didn't want the checkpoints anymore, so they voted for a different government called Hamas, who said that we'll get rid of the checkpoints, we'll stop the Israeli land settlements, and we'll let the people here be free. And because they did that, they were named as a terrorist organisation. They built a wall around the country, and they've been bombing it ever since, basically. And what you've got here is an area of land that's 25 miles long, 4.5 to 5 miles wide, hemmed in by a wall, and you've got 1.8 million people in there, over 900,000 children in Gaza Strip. Over half the population is children. Of course, that number has probably dramatically decreased now from the recent Israeli incursion. What they were voting for, folks, when they voted for Hamas was an end to this, an end to the bulldozing of Palestinian homes and an end to the checkpoints. Someone who knows the bulldozers very well, actually, is this lady, Rachel Corrie. Has anyone heard of Rachel Corrie? Rachel Corrie was an activist who, she's actually quite well known for a 5th grade speech she put out, which is a very, very powerful speech. But she stood in front of an Israeli bulldozer to try to stop it bulldozing a doctor and his family's home. The Israeli bulldozer actually ran over her. And it didn't just run over her, it went right over the top of her until she was under the back of the bulldozer. Then it lowered the blade and backed up over her and flattened her into the road, like it was flattening out the road. And she actually, her case went to trial while I was in Gaza Strip, so it's especially poignant for me. The bulldozer driver was, of course, exonerated of any wrongdoing. Rachel just happened to be in the wrong spot at the wrong time. He claimed he didn't see her, even though she was standing in front of him with a fluorescent jacket on, with activists all around the bulldozer screaming for the driver to stop. So that's the situation. This is what she was protesting against, folks. This is the Israeli settlements that go on in Gaza. They just basically come and take your land, usually in the middle of the night. They'll come in and shift families out. They just say, you don't live here anymore, it's now Israeli land. And they build these settlements. And these aren't log cabins, folks, these are major settlements. And of course, Jerusalem, the West Bank, the Palestinian side of Jerusalem has a big wall around it, but it's not an apartheid system. And that's basically Jerusalem. And Gaza has a much, much bigger wall around it, including guard towers. And it's to stop this. And that's why they voted for Hamas. So I went in there in 2012 with a guy called Ken O'Keefe. And these are the checkpoints. These are what they were protesting against. The Israelis didn't treat them very well at the checkpoints. There were far too many fathers stolen from their children, far too many children stolen from their parents as well. At the moment, there's around about 6,000 people in Israeli detention centres. There's about 1,000 children or 1,500 children under the age of 18 in Israeli detention centres at the moment. People just picked up at checkpoints, picked up for whatever. Doesn't really matter, they're only Palestinians, so we put them in jail. They inject them with pathogens before they release them, all sorts of stuff. It's absolutely terrible what these people go through. But when I got there, I went in with this guy, Ken O'Keefe. We actually snuck in through a rebel tunnel. It wasn't a Hamas tunnel, it was a rebel tunnel. 50 metres underground it was, folks. We went down through this shaft like this on an angle. We had to lower ourselves down with ropes. And I'm looking at this little tunnel, it's about this high, and it goes from about here to that wall away. And I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, I wonder what's around that corner. I wonder if there's a grave around that corner. Because we're in Egypt, we couldn't even speak the language of these kids. We thought we were going through an official Hamas tunnel, and they led us to a rebel tunnel. And we went into this thing, and I shone the torch around the corner, and I looked, and this tunnel went on for ages, and I thought, well, it's not a grave. That's a good sign, in we go, you know. And we went into this tunnel, and it ended up being about this high. And I don't know how long, it must have been at least a couple of kilometres long, maybe a mile, maybe more, I don't know. We were underground for about an hour and a half, crawling on our hands and knees through Rafah, underneath the Rafah crossing. We came up in Gaza Strip, and what I found in Gaza was a bombed out war zone and a world of children. I went in there, I made some school desks for some school children, some kids that were in there from the Samuni family. Terrible ordeal the Samuni family suffered in Operation Cast Lead in 2008, 2009. It's a situation where the Israelis, they always land on the Samuni land. They got this one particular family, they hoarded all of them into this one building, 97 members of this family, the extended family, the whole street is Samunis. They got them all into this one building. They terrorised one particular section of the family, a woman called Zanad Samuni, who's got 8 children. She was in the house with 7 of her children and her husband when the Israeli soldiers arrived. made them all sit down in the lounge room, and then they said, who's the head of the house? The father stood up, so they shot him straight away in front of the family. They hauled the rest of the family into the back room of the house. Then they brought all the furniture into the room and they smashed it up. They built a bonfire in the back room of the house. All the people were sitting all around the room, sitting around the walls of the room. They lit this huge bonfire in the room. Then they went outside and they just fired machine guns through the windows just above their heads. Made them sit in there for about half an hour, just terrorised them for no reason at all. Waited till the room was so full of smoke that the baby was literally choking, and then they allowed them to leave. They separated the mother from her family. They sent the children into the room with the rest of the extended family, told her to go up the road to her neighbour's house or her friend's house, her family's house. And she went in there and she found they'd all been shot in the head. She went across to the shop to get her small son, who's 4 years old, called Ahmed. She found he'd been shot twice in the chest and once in the head, but he was still alive. The bullets had been placed carefully, so they'd punctured the lung, but they hadn't actually killed him. They weren't in the heart, they were just off-centre and shot just through the side of the head, so that he wasn't dead, he was alive. She carried him around for a day and a half trying to get medical aid and medical attention. They'd blow up every ambulance she walked to. They absolutely terrorised her, made her carry her 4-year-old son around for a day and a half while he died. While this was happening, the rest of the extended family was ordered into a room and it was hit with rockets. Once the 97 family members were in there, they shot it with rockets. They killed 29 family members in one go. Now this is an area, this is a room which is about probably the size of this group of people sitting here. That's the size of the room. Now think about it, 97 people hoarded into this room, and then the room was hit with rockets. 29 people died, and they were left in the rubble for 4 days before they'd let them out of the room. You got mothers lying next to their dead children, children lying next to their dead siblings and dead parents. Nobody's allowed out. Whenever the children would try to come out, waving white flags, the Israelis would shoot at them. And that's just one family. This happened to so many families in there. And what we've seen in the recent incursion in there is there was actually 92 entire families exterminated in this last incursion. And these are big families, like the Samuni is 97 family members. These are big families, folks, and it's a brutal occupation. So what I did when I went in there was I got the children from the Samuni family who are so traumatised they can't go to a normal school, and we turned the room that was actually hit by rockets that they've rebuilt into a schoolroom for the Samuni children because they want to learn. They want to learn how to read and write. They want to make a difference. They want an education. They want to be able to socialise with other children, but they can't go to normal school. So I built a school desk, a schoolroom for them while I was in there. It was a great thing to do. I was very happy that I could do it. This is the translator that we had there, Omar, young 21-year-old guy, 21 at the time, born in Palestine. Parents live in Dubai, but he was actually born in Palestine. He was living in Dubai, and when he turned 21, they told him, well, now that you're 21, we can't extend your permanent residence visa. You'll have to go back to Gaza. And they sent him back to Gaza Strip. He's been there for 2.5 years now, actually going crazy, can't get out. And that's the thing with Gaza, folks. Palestine isn't recognised as a country, so the people can't leave. You know, Israel says we give them warning, we're giving them, they can leave if they want to, but they can't because they don't come from anywhere, because Palestine isn't a country. So therefore they have no passports, they have no permanent names, they don't have anything because they're not registered, any of this sort of stuff, so they can't leave because they're classed as non-people. So that's the thing, they don't have a voice and they can't leave, and they're just subject to constant brutality. Gaza Strip is basically a modern-day version of the Warsaw Ghetto in Poland, only it's on a grander scale than the Warsaw Ghetto was. I'm showing you these pictures because I want you to see these are just normal people. This was a university that I lectured at while I was there. They were absolutely honoured to have a foreigner there, a Westerner there talking to them. Absolutely beautiful people. And like I said, a world of children. This little girl here, Noor Samuni, is a dear little girl, and someone that I want to go in and make a documentary about. I was actually supposed to go in there next month, but Hamas has changed the rules. But like I said, folks, it was a world of children. Everywhere I went in Gaza, I saw children. Just children everywhere. Many of them, like this little fella, bearing the battle scars of war. This little guy here lost 5 brothers and sisters and both his parents in one day in that bombing that I told you about. And just children everywhere, folks, a world of children. This is a shelter in Samuni Street where about 15 children live. This little guy said, Max, take a picture of me on my front porch. You know, very proud that he's got his chair and his little table there and he's just sitting there on his front porch. This is the way they live, and they're quite happy about it. They're wonderful, positive people. Everywhere I went, I met beautiful people in Palestine. I didn't meet one terrorist the whole time I was there. And this guy, hey Max, great to see you. You know, and no child should have battle scars like these kids have. This is my friend Mace. You notice she's not wearing a hijab. So it's not Sharia law, it's not terrorists, it's not this hotbed of terrorists. This is a woman, a Muslim woman with no hijab that is fine, and she's just walking around Gaza, it's all good. And there's a large Christian population in Gaza Strip as well. I even went to one building there that was a mosque on one side and a church on the other. They go into the one building and they pray together. There's none of the division that we hear about this place. It's just a group of children who don't have a voice, a group of people who don't have a voice. And they're beautiful, beautiful little people, you know, they really are. And I want to go back and find Noor. I'm still going to go in and make a documentary about her. I still have to get in there, but I'm waiting to see if I can. This was saying goodbye to her. That was the second last photo I took of her. She came running up to me and said, Max, I can fit in your suitcase. And I said, yeah, I know you can, darling, but I can't take you with me. I wish I could. She doesn't have any parents, so and she could speak English with the kids that I was building the desk for, so we had a real bond, this little girl and I desperately want to go back in and find her and make a movie about her life. So this recent incursion, folks, Operation Protective Edge, they called it. When you look at this, even the propaganda in this, you know, notice you've got the Israeli forces, then Hamas forces. What about the 1.8 million civilians in there? It's just Hamas forces. And who are Hamas? Hamas are a legitimate resistance movement against a brutal Israeli occupation, but they're a government that was actually created by Israel as competition to Fatah, to get rid of Yasser Arafat. But when the people voted for them, oh, terrorist group. So now they do this. And this ground invasion that they did and this onslaught that they did was absolutely disgusting, folks. There's a couple of really disturbing images here I'm about to show you. I just want to warn you of that. But what they did, and why this is important for people to notice, what they did in Gaza Strip was they go in there and they use experimental weapons all the time. This is one of the main reasons they keep Gaza there, is because they can go in and test all their weapons on them. Now this here is what's called dime ammunition, dense inert metal explosive ammunition. And what this does, this shoots a bullet into a room, and then the bullet explodes in the middle of the room and it shoots out micro shrapnel. And the micro shrapnel will literally tear flesh from the body, but it won't damage the furniture. It won't take the paint off the walls, it'll only affect soft tissue. And I don't know who would even think about this stuff. I mean, who would use this sort of stuff? But that's what they were using against the people in Gaza Strip. And these weapons are designed to, if they don't kill you, they will maim you horribly. In the latest incursion into Gaza Strip, we've heard that about 378 children or something were killed. There's also hundreds upon hundreds of disabled children now from this latest incursion into Gaza. And remember, most of Gaza is children. When you go and have a war against Gaza Strip, you're waging a war against children. That's what's going on there. And they dare to slander them while they do it by calling them terrorists. Now this ammunition, it literally tears the flesh from the bones, folks. It's absolutely shocking. These are wounds that you can't treat. These are the wounds of nightmares. And this is what they do to people, you know. Another favourite is this, flesh A bombs. They were using this in Gaza Strip as well. Flesh A bombs, these are micro darts that are designed in such a way as to make them almost impossible to remove from the body. They come in creative designs too. Let's get creative about it. And what these things do, this is one of the delivery systems. They shoot that into a room. All those little dots there, they're not ball bearings. These are those little spikes that I just showed you. And these go out into the room and they cause the most horrible wounds you can imagine. And they're almost impossible to remove from people's bodies because there's so many of them. Of course, if they hit you close up, they cause a little bit more damage. I thought I'd only pause on that one for a second. Another favourite one is white phosphorus that they use in Gaza. White phosphorus is a banned chemical weapon. It burns you from the inside out. It sucks all the oxygen out of your body. Your body has got a lot of oxygen in it, folks. If it lands on your body, it burns at about 1500 degrees and it sucks all the moisture out of your body, as you can see by this body lying here. They used that extensively in 2008 and it was classed as a war crime. It is a war crime. And these are pictures taken from July 2014. So using it again, they say they don't target civilians, but they let these bombs off in the air over residential areas and they just blanket the whole place in white phosphorus. And even if you breathe it in, it starts burning you from the inside out. Very bad stuff, folks. And they use it against these kids. That's what got me so upset about what's going on in Gaza at the moment, is that it's a war against children using the weapons from hell. You know, this is little Nora. This was the last picture that I took of her. They say the eyes are the windows to the soul. And she's an old soul, folks. She's a beautiful soul. But they say the eyes are the windows to the soul, so this picture tells me more about Benjamin Netanyahu than I think I ever needed to know. But that's the sort of soul that would turn this into this and claim that it's self-defense. That's actually the power station being blown up in Gaza. That's the power station. They blew that up on what is essentially the Muslim Christmas Day. And when they did it, they said, we're putting the people in Gaza on a diet. That's the sociopathic nature of these people, you know. It's absolutely terrible, folks. Make no mistake about it, it's a war crime. Everything that's happened in Gaza is a war crime. And the most important thing about it is that it's been carried out against a civilian population by a major Western country, a major superpower, a member of G8. This isn't Rwanda, this isn't Idi Amin, this isn't Ukraine, communists, or whatever you want to call it, you know. This isn't anything that we, you know, some deep, dark terror organisation. This is a major player, a member of G8, that is using banned chemical weapons and experimental ammunition against a population of children walled in. And this is something we need to pay attention to, because all of this has been supported by our governments. Any government that supports Israel is supporting this. And when I speak out about Israel, I'm not speaking out against Jews. It's important to understand that. I'm speaking out against the criminal system, which is the Israeli government. And it isn't just the Israeli government. Israel isn't just a rogue state. All of our states are rogue states. Anything that supports this is a rogue state. Any government that supports the permanent economic slavery of their system, their citizens, is a rogue state. But what this has done is it's provided an opportunity for us, because everything Gaza that just happened in Gaza was a war crime. Simply conducting a war against a population of walled-in children is a war crime. Blowing up mosques is a war crime. Blowing up ambulances, hospitals, schools, this is a war crime. Blowing up the UN school, all the hospitals they blew up, almost every hospital in Gaza. Taking out the waterworks is a war crime. Taking out the power plant is a war crime. Taking out the ancient monuments that they just took out. They took out stuff in Gaza Strip with this latest incursion that had been built in 300 AD. These are buildings that are Palestinian culture going way back, way back. And this again is another form of ethnic cleansing. You take out all of their culture, any trace that the Palestinians ever existed. And it's a war crime. All of it has been a war crime. And what we can do now is we can pressure our governments to make sure Benjamin Netanyahu is charged with war crimes and the Israeli government is charged with war crimes. How does that benefit us? Well, because once Benjamin Netanyahu is charged with war crimes, even if it doesn't stick, which it probably won't because of the power of veto and what the United States does and how they control the UN anyway, at least the charges have been put forth and it's been acknowledged that the government committed war crimes. But that won't happen if we don't pressure our politicians to do it. But the thing is, as soon as they do, it opens the floodgates for us to charge our own governments with war crimes for supporting this war crime. And we don't need the UN for that. You can charge the government of Denmark under your own laws if this government is found to have supported Israel through this latest incursion. And that's a huge thing for us. We can all do that. And if we don't, then they've just shown us what they're prepared to do against civilian populations. And this is why it's dangerous building things like alternate communities, folks. You go out and you build yourself a little alternate community here and we're all awake and we all have this stuff and we're going to create a working model. They like you to do that because you're not participating in this community while you do it. And all they've got to do is name someone in your alternate community as being a terrorist and bang, you're a terrorist cell. They can spin it in the media any way they want. They can surround you and they can wipe you out with the weapons from hell because they've just been legitimised by this latest incursion. So if we don't pay attention to what's going on in Palestine, then as I've often said, the way of Palestine will be the way of the world, because what it is a system of warehousing and surplusing human beings. And this will be applied to all of our countries if we don't pay attention. Because it is a war crime, folks. Everything they've done is a war crime. From the killing of children to everything they've done. And that's just what it looked like halfway through the invasion, the list of children that have been killed. And these are the Hamas rockets, folks. This is what Israel's defending themselves against. We're always hearing about these terrible rocket attacks. These are skyrockets. These are metal pipes powered by fertiliser that come over and put a hole in your roof. They only kill you if they land on your head. Here's a big collection of them. They say, look at all the terrible rockets they're sending over. They're sending hundreds of rockets over. But how come you've got them all there on a shelf to show us? It's because they don't explode. They're just pipes. They're fertiliser-powered pipes. That's what they do. That's terrible, isn't it? I mean, imagine that. Imagine that in your yard. How terrible. That's what the Israeli rockets do, by way of comparison. There's the comparison there. I mean, there's a big difference between these rockets, folks. These ones put a black splodge on your road. But of course, the people of Israel are scared to death of these as well, because the people of Israel are terrified by their own government. They're terrorised by their own government. The government's constantly letting out air raid sirens and stuff. So they think, oh, there's these terrible rocket attacks coming, but we're deflecting them through our Iron Dome program. The Iron Dome program is a hoax. It's just a computer program that puts extra dots on the screen. You get one of these rockets launched from Gaza, the Iron Dome program will put 9 more on the screen and then shoot 9 of them down. And then this one falls short anyway because they never hit anything. They hardly ever kill anybody. I don't think anybody's actually been killed by Hamas rockets. Maybe a couple, but I don't think they've actually killed anybody with these things. So you've got to wonder, I mean, they provide the perfect opportunity that Israel needs to keep attacking Gaza. So what's the point of these things, you know? But the Iron Dome program is a complete hoax, but that's what is used to terrify the Israeli people. And the Israeli people, I mean, this is one of the most programmed societies on earth. It really is. I was speaking to an Israeli woman, and she was telling me how terrible it is that the Muslim mothers and the Muslim parents want to sacrifice their children. They worship death and they sacrifice their children. And that when you go and raid a Palestinian house, they hold their children up for you to shoot. That's what they believe. They say they hold their children up to shoot. It's terrible that they do this. But I said to her, look, hang on, if you're a mother in a house and you just were there with your child and there was an army bearing down on you, what would you do? Would you cower in your room? Or would you go outside and hold your child up to say, hey, look, it's just a mother and a child. There's no soldiers here. Don't attack us. Oh, no, they hold them up to shoot. I'm going, but why do you shoot? If they hold the child up, why don't you shoot the parent? If you're so concerned that the parent is holding the child up for you to kill the child, why do you kill the child? Who's guilty, the mother for holding it up or the soldier who shoots the child? But they hold their children up to say, hey, look, it's just a mother and a child, don't attack us. But the Israelis believe that, oh no, they want us to kill the children. And so they kill them. And of course, it's the Muslim that's to blame. It's an amazing program, folks. It's incredible. And the thing is, you try to talk to these people and they're programmed. They're programmed by a false history. And they're not lying to you when they tell you this stuff. This woman had tears coming down her face. She literally believed what she was saying. And no matter how much I tried to tell her the truth, she wouldn't listen. She was completely programmed into this reality. So that's what we're dealing with. So can you hate the Jews for what they do? Well, no, they're programmed into what they do. And a lot of it is through the supremacist religious system because they're heavily indoctrinated into the religious system. And as I said, all religions have a seed of supremacism at their root. That's the basis of the whole thing. And this is what they're doing, folks. This is Gaza. It's unbelievable. But see, everything Israel tells us is backwards. They tell us that the Gazans use Palestinian children for human shields. Here's a Palestinian children being used as a human shield by Israeli soldiers. As you can see, they make pretty good footstools as well, you know. And they tell us that the Palestinians are trained to use weapons at an early age. And here are the people training their children. There's a young girl with a bazooka. She looks like she's 3. And this young kid here looks like he's like 3 years old. But these guys doing battle training, nice Uzi, Dad. You know, so there's a weird thing going on here. They tell us that these Hamas terrorists are always threatening themselves. But I don't know, folks. I was in Gaza. And look at these guns. What are these guns? These are AR-15s or M16s. These are American weapons. You don't see people in Palestine using American weapons. They use Kalashnikovs, Russian weapons you can use in the desert. You can't use American weapons in the desert. They jam up too much. But we're told all these guys have always got masks on when we see them, you know, so I don't know. I just wonder about all this stuff. Of course, there's this guy. Here he is wearing a Star of David, this Hamas soldier wearing a Star of David on his neck. His shirt's popped open. That's a bit unusual, isn't it? And again here, it's an American M16 or AR-15. It's an American-made weapon. Of course, there's a website that's been constructed now, which will say, oh, no, this is taken from a training camp. We set up training camps where we have all these people dressed up in uniform and making them out to look like Hamas so we can train our soldiers. But of course, that website came out after I found this photo. So I would suggest maybe that website was created to cover up the fact that this photo actually exists and that that's actually an Israeli agent acting like he's a member of Hamas. This is how they do it, folks, because everybody born in Gaza is a terrorist, after all. That's what Benjamin Netanyahu said. He said that you go into the houses in Gaza And every house there'll be the kitchen and then the bedroom and then the rocket room. That's what's in every Israeli. And he said they're all terrorists. Every man's a terrorist. All the women are terrorists, and all the children grow up to be little terrorists. You know, that's what they train us. That's what they think. But they're not terrorists. They're resistance fighters. So that's all you've got to do to be a terrorist, folks, is to question the system. If you fight back, you're a terrorist. And they're setting the standard for that now with this latest ISIS stuff. I mean, who believes this ISIS thing? And everyone's seen this beheading, this jihadi Jack? I mean, these fake videos they're putting out of the beheadings. I mean, and then you've got all these new laws coming in England to counteract this. I mean, it's very obvious where they're going, folks. It's very obvious where they're going. And you can't talk about it. You can't ever talk about it. As this guy said, this is a friend of mine, Gilad Atzmon, wrote a great book called The Wandering Who. And he made a great quote, which I have to share with you, that the real meaning of Jewish power is the capacity to silence any discussion about Jewish power. That's the thing. So what is Jewish power? I mean, the whole thing has been constructed as a mechanism to destabilise the Middle East. Is the power really Jewish? Is that who's really in control of Israel? I don't believe it is. I believe these people are Khazars that came from Europe anyway, and the whole thing's puppeteered by the banking cartels. But what it is a model where they use experimental weapon and they have a system of surplusing and warehousing human beings. That's what it is. It's all related. That's why our government support it all. It isn't the Jews doing this. It isn't even Israel doing it. It's this whole corporate system that's doing it.